The information provided on the Forever Young Show by its host or sponsors is for educational and personal alternatives. Statements have not been established by the Food and Drug Administration. They are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Welcome to the Forever Young Radio Show. Over the past 2 decades, we have had the opportunity to serve and help so many listeners. We do that by bringing on respected educators in all fields of health and wellness. We pride ourselves on keeping consumers in the know about our ever-changing healthcare system and ways to support the body. Each week, with the help of our special guests and experts, we have one goal in mind, and that's to ensure every listener has the most up-to-date information on ways to support all aspects of health. Now, here's your host.
Hello, everyone. So glad you could join us today right here on Forever Young. If it's the first time that you've listened to our program, we show up each and every week and have for 29 years with the hopes of informing and educating every listener on healthier lifestyle options and good quality science-based information. If you'd like to learn more about our program, it's very easy to do so. You can learn more on our website, which is foreveryoungradio.com. Again, that is foreveryoungradio.com. And there you can listen to over 670 podcast episodes ranging on all different topics and read some very great fantastic science-backed articles, depending on what you're trying to make modifications in your day-to-day. I want to give a shout out to one of our original stations, our longest running station, KCBQ there in San Diego. Hello to all the listeners, Sirius XM 131. Grateful that you tune in each and every week. If you're listening on the podcast platform, again, we are lucky to have you. Now, today we'll be joined by a vitamin D subject matter expert. She is also a well-known educator, research consultant, functional nutritionist, acupuncturist, certified health coach, and holistic health consultant, and again, a published co-author and speaker. This special guest is Jennifer Aliano. She has more letters after her name than most people that I interview on this show, so we are very grateful to have her. She has over 13 years of experience in vitamin D research and education. She's an expert in nutrient research, public health advocacy, and personalized health strategies, advocating for individualized, holistic approaches to fertility, pregnancy, and lifelong health. She is currently the executive director of GrassrootsHealth, which is a 501c3 nonprofit public health promotion and research organization supported by over 50 international senior vitamin D scientists and experts. Grassroots Health has been running the world's largest public health intervention study, the D Action Field trial, to solve the vitamin D deficiency epidemic, while focusing on promoting optimal health worldwide through nutrient research, education, and advocacy, with a primary focus and role of vitamin D. Jen, welcome to the show. It's so nice to have you with us today.
It's wonderful to be here this Friday morning.
Well, goodness, you've been busy. I mean, that isn't even your full bio. I want you to know I took little crumbs of what an accomplished career you have had in so many different capacities. But what led you down the path of health all those years ago?
Oh, goodness. Well, I guess where it started was my own health issues that came up when I was in my late teens. So I started to get really sick. I started to lose a lot of weight. Just having a lot of stomach issues. And I went and saw every single doctor I could. I had colonoscopy, endoscopy, had all the tests run. And I finally went and saw an acupuncturist, and she did my food sensitivity testing. At that time was really not accepted by conventional medicine. But what it found was that my egg white sensitivity was way off the charts. And I was eating eggs like 2 or 3 times a day. Wow. And so I also had a little bit of sensitivity to gluten and kidney beans and almonds and a couple other weird things. But when I cut the eggs out of my diet and I really just took some months off of the gluten and everything else that showed some sensitivity, it made a huge difference in my health. And that's when I started to really become interested in nutrition, and started reading like Andrew Weil books and Linus Pauling books, and just really got into all the orthomolecular medicine and the individual nutrients and the different types of diets. And that's kind of how it started. And then in terms of vitamin D, I ended up, I've been in nutrition, in the nutrition field since about 2004. Got into acupuncture, specialized in fertility and pregnancy. But then in my own second pregnancy, I started having preterm labor around 28 weeks, and I was put on bed rest. on bed rest, had my baby around 35 weeks. And then he had several complications after he was born. And it turned out he had his vitamin D levels checked at one point because we were getting his blood drawn every week. It was so painful.
Wow.
But his vitamin D level was 11.
Oh, my God.
And this was, I knew about omega-3s, I knew about, but vitamin D had never crossed my radar as a practitioner even. I knew it was a sunshine vitamin, but I'm a surfer girl in San Diego. I'm in the sun all the time, and I didn't need to worry about my vitamin D, right? so I started giving my little boy vitamin D drops, never really thought about it for me until I found Grassroots Health. That's when my eyes really opened. I finally had my own vitamin D level checked. It was 28 the first time, which was very surprising because our experts, our scientists all agree on a target optimal level of 40 to 60, and we'll get into that more later. But that's really what catapulted me into the vitamin D world and really grew my passion about sharing about vitamin D and advocating for it. And now I just can't stop talking about it.
Well, I'm glad you're talking about it because it seems like a lot of people have that kind of mindset that you had in the earlier years where I'm a surfer girl. I'm getting tons of vitamin D. I'm out in the sun. Obviously, we all have to do a better job. So I'm glad that it happened to you because you have become a warrior for vitamin D. But listeners, go and check out the weekly highlight page to learn more about Grassroots Health, learn more about Jen and what we're going to be talking about today on the weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. We'll be right back.
We hear so much about gut health, but have you wondered why gut health is so important? Your gut has a lot more to do with overall health than simply digesting food. Have you heard of leaky gut? Leaky gut may allow bacteria and toxins into your bloodstream, potentially causing a whole range of unwanted health problems. Emerald Lab's Leaky Gut Health Formula is designed to help soothe and support the GI tract. It contains quercetin phytosome, DGL licorice, slippery elm, and aloe vera extract, which help to assist with optimal digestion and acid balance. Emerald Labs is committed to providing your family with formulas using supporting nutrient forms, manufactured at our facility without the use of additives. Use the code FOREVER to save 20% off your first order at emeraldlabs.com. That's 20% off your first order when you use the code FOREVER at emeraldlabs.com. Or you can find Leaky Gut Health and other Emerald Labs products at natural product stores nationwide.
Kids don't just bring home homework, they bring home germs. And those germs don't just stay with them, they spread to the whole household. That's why Clear Nasal Spray was created by a practicing physician to give parents and grandparents peace of mind. You may not think about it, but your nose is filtering out a semi-truck full of air every single day. Clear isn't just another spray. It creates an additional layer of protection in your nose that blocks bacteria and viruses before they can even take hold. Yes, even that virus. Supporting your body's defenses right where germs first try to enter. Clear is a hygiene product recommended for daily use, drug-free, non-drowsy, and safe for all ages. Just a quick spray in the morning and evening helps you cleanse your nose. Don't just hope for protection, create it. Get Clear Nasal Spray, your daily defense. Clear Nasal Spray is available at retailers nationwide and online. Check out Xlear.com for our special offers. That's Xlear.com.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, we are going to be covering vitamin D today. One of those things during the pandemic that was being talked about and touted, which got people back on the track. But again, it's very individualized, and we're going to learn that throughout the show today versus I may need a different amount than Jen may need. So we're going to get educated. We're getting back. Jen Aliano is joining us today. Jen, what is vitamin D for people who don't really follow health? Do they just assume they can only get it from the sun?
A lot of people assume that they get enough from the sun, and that's unfortunately one of the biggest misconceptions that we have to deal with. But so vitamin D, obviously, it's the sunshine vitamin. That's how it's known. Our skin makes vitamin D when it's exposed to UVB rays from sunshine. But the thing is we only really get UVB rays in the middle of the day during certain seasons, so mostly during the summer seasons. And you can tell if there's UVB if you're standing outside and you are taller than your shadow is long on the ground. So if your
Mhm.
shadow is longer than you are tall, there's no UVB and you're not making vitamin D. So this is in the morning, in the evenings, late afternoons. Generally in San Diego, we don't have what's called a vitamin D winter. We have UVB available to us all year long, but you have to be intentional when you go outside if you want to make vitamin D from the sun. You cannot cover up, you can't put sunscreen on. Yes, you have to be mindful, and you don't ever want to burn. You need to know your skin tone, right? The darker your skin, the more melanin you have, and that acts as a natural sunscreen. And so it actually, your body, if you've got dark skin, you need to be in the sun longer than somebody with light skin. So you'll probably need closer to 30 minutes of sun exposure with UVB to make the same amount of vitamin D as somebody with really light skin that they can make in about 5 minutes. And so
Wow.
you have to be mindful, and you have to know your skin and when to put your sunscreen on, because you don't want to burn. That's when the skin cancer becomes a concern.
Yeah.
So unfortunately though, we create our own vitamin D winters, right? By staying indoors, we're inside all the time, we cover up, we're afraid of the sun. The sun, there's so many health benefits from getting sensible sun exposure. And from morning through evening. But in terms of vitamin D itself, you have to be out when UVB rays are available. Otherwise, the whole notion that I'm outside and my arms and my face are exposed to the sun, and so I'm getting enough vitamin D, is completely incorrect.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of what those misconceptions of why we, are sharing this show today, but also understanding why there's such a deficiency in our population when it comes to vitamin D. And my heart goes out to the people listening across the country who have had some of the worst winters. And then again, if you're living somewhere like North Dakota, South Dakota, Montana, you can only
Mhm.
imagine why things like seasonal affective disorder kick in if we're not getting that sunlight, we're not managing proper vitamin D levels. Now, Jen, I want to kind of share with our listeners, you were going to share with us how some of us missed the mark during the pandemic. Please, let's talk a little bit about that.
Right. And the pandemic was such a great opportunity for people to learn about vitamin D. Grassroots Health, myself, and several of our scientists, we published the first paper on vitamin D and coronavirus. And that, I think, was published in April or May. And we were talking about it a lot. And so it got picked up by a lot of other folks. And there were all the benefits of vitamin D in your immune system, and vitamin D in respiratory health that got talked about a lot. But where so many people miss the mark with vitamin D, and this is the most important thing that you need to know about vitamin D, is that you can't just hear, oh, vitamin D is good for you, go out and buy a bottle, right? Oh,
Mhm.
you just need 1,000 IU a day. Oh, you just need 2,000 IU a day. Because it's different for everyone. And so everybody really needs to understand that vitamin D, and I know we keep saying vitamin D, yes, it is a vitamin in some ways. It's also a hormone, right?
Mhm.
Our body needs vitamin D to control our calcium homeostasis within the body. It's also a gene regulator. It goes into every single one of our cells and helps regulate our genes, helps them turn on or off, and tells the cells what to do, especially our immune cells. And so we need enough vitamin D for that to work effectively and optimally. But everybody needs a different amount of vitamin D. And this is where the message fell short so often during COVID, because you can't just assume that you're getting enough if you're taking a pill, right? So the
Right.
first thing you need to know is you need to know what your level is. What's your baseline level? Where are you starting? So mine was 28, right? Okay, mine's 28. We have a calculator that we have on our website that helps calculate how much vitamin D you need based on your current level, your target level, your weight, because your weight is one of the main key factors that affects how much vitamin D you need. And so you really have to determine, okay, I'm going to try 5,000 IU a day. I'm going to see how that works for 3 to 6 months, and then I'm going to retest to make sure that that is the proper dose for me. Am I within that target range? We say 40 to 60 is the target range for the general population for general health. There's a lot of different opinions out there. You might want to go higher if you have certain health concerns, which we can talk about later. But making sure that you're at least in that 40 to 60 range is really the most important thing that you can do about vitamin D. Understand that it takes a different amount for each individual.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, Jen, is how many people do you think are actually testing their vitamin D levels?
Not enough.
Exactly. It's so easy to test. People ask me, well, Kelly, there's a lot of vitamin D, there's D3K2 on the market. Where do I start? And that's a good point. And we're going to be able to talk about that later, because I tell some people, and I think you may agree, that depending where that test comes back, I might recommend them doing a loading dose. What are some of the risks of having low vitamin D levels?
So the risks is in the factors that contribute to having low vitamin D levels. Probably the number one is body mass index, or your weight, how much mass you have, because vitamin D gets sucked into your tissues. And one of the misconceptions about vitamin D is that, vitamin D is stored in my fat. So if I'm not getting it from the sun, if I'm not taking it, I'll just be fine. It'll pull out of my fat. But your body actually maintains a ratio, a constant ratio of vitamin D between your fat and your blood. And where do you need the vitamin D? You need it in your blood so that your cells can access it. And so you need to make sure that you're taking enough vitamin D so that even, if you're overweight or obese, you're going to need 2 to 3 times more vitamin Ds than somebody who's not. And there have been plenty of trials that have shown this. There's even been trials. So the Big Vital trial that was completed several years ago, there was some mixed results that came out of it for many reasons, and that's beyond this conversation today. But one of the things that they did find was that for individuals who had a normal BMI, they did find some really amazing decreased risk of cancer among those groups.
Wow.
For the ones that had higher BMI, they didn't see a significant relationship. But again, it's because they were only giving a smaller dose of vitamin D. They weren't going based off of serum level, and they were just looking to see if this 2000 IU made a difference in terms of cancer risk. So, but other risks, like we talked about earlier, is darker skin color. So the darker your skin tone, the higher your risk of vitamin D deficiency. People with poor digestion, people with chronic diseases, people with high stress. Stress can create inflammation, and that inflammation can eat up your vitamin D, and it can actually make vitamin D less effective. Co-nutrients, and this is really important because you mentioned vitamin K2. The other biggie is magnesium. If you're not getting enough of those nutrients that are really needed for vitamin D to be metabolized and absorbed and utilized within the body, then you're not going to be reaping the effects of the vitamin D itself. In fact, there's some studies that have shown that individuals who are not getting enough magnesium, their vitamin D levels might not be going up in response to dose as they would expect. And when they start taking magnesium, their levels of vitamin D will go up. But what they've also found in some studies having to do, especially with type 2 diabetes, is that if those individuals who are getting enough magnesium, you'll see that decreased risk of type 2 diabetes. But if you're not getting enough magnesium, there's a lower decrease in risk. Right? So the vitamin D is not working as effectively without its partners, and mainly K2, magnesium, and several others. And they also help with the vitamin D dose response too, K2 and magnesium together. That's one of the things that Grassroots Health has been able to show with our own data, are these dose response curves to show how people respond to a single dose in terms of their serum level, how intake of different nutrients affects that dose response, and all that.
Absolutely. And again, I think people are really starting to realize the importance of vitamin D, how easy it is for us to get it back into our system once we test and know what that number is. Again, we're going to talk more throughout the show on the importance of testing and knowing these numbers that we're dealing with. If you have low vitamin D levels, it sets you up for a cascade effect of other things, missteps within your system. So again, something as easy as a conversation we're having today, which, believe me, getting to this point was not easy for Grassroots Health or any of the scientists, reviewing all this stuff and doing caseworks on individuals. So we're going to talk more about that when we come back from the break. Go and check this website out, CheckYourD.org. Again, CheckYourD.org, and learn more about vitamin D testing before we talk more about it when we come back from the break.
It's now well established that chronic stress leads to an outpouring of cortisol, and with that, a gradual depletion of DHEA. DHEA is a prohormone, a natural building block for hormones our bodies make. Over time, this hormonal imbalance can lead to brain fog, thinning bones, weight gain, low sex drive, and poor immune function. Maintaining proper DHEA levels in the body is important to your overall health and may lead to increased energy, enhanced mood and focus, sounder sleep, and better-looking skin. Quality matters when supplementing with DHEA. Twist 25 DHEA cream puts exactly what the body makes naturally, bioidentical DHEA in the skin, where the body processes DHEA. As a base building block for hormones, DHEA gives the body a key foundation it uses to make hormones, especially the androgens or feel-good hormones. Visit twist25.com to learn more and order online, or call 888-489-4782. Look your best, feel your best with Twist 25 DHEA cream. That's twist25.com.
Are you concerned about your blood pressure? Join the millions worldwide who have chosen Kyolic as a natural alternative to support their heart health. Why Kyolic? It works. Over 900 published scientific articles and research studies have shown that Kyolic aged garlic extract has a positive effect on cardiovascular risk factors such as high blood pressure, cholesterol, circulation, blood sugar balance, and more. Kyolic aged garlic extract, organically grown garlic aged for up to 20 months for maximum purity and potency. Gentle on the stomach, easy to swallow capsules with no offensive garlic odor or taste. Visit Kyolic.com. That's KYOLIC.com. Learn about Kyolic Formula 109 for blood pressure, as well as Kyolic's other cardiovascular formulas. Kyolic is sold at Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Whole Foods, and natural health stores everywhere. Also online. Get Kyolic Blood Pressure Health Formula 109. It works.
Welcome back, listeners. Again, being joined by a very special first-time guest, Jen Aliano of GrassrootsHealth, here to educate us and give us some information on vitamin D. And before we went to the break, we were talking about certain risks, Jen. And again, I appreciate you sharing that with us. But we have many listeners from different walks of life, from different stages of health. And I think what would really correlate this discussion best for them to be able to understand is knowing, are there symptoms related to having something like a vitamin D deficiency?
Of course. But a key point there is that most often you won't notice the symptoms, right? So most of the symptoms are fatigue, muscle weakness, depression, back pain, low back pain. And those you can often contribute to so many other things in life, right? Oh, I'm just stressed. Oh, I just, tweaked my back. When in reality, a lot of it can be due to vitamin D deficiency. And I'll tell a quick story. One of my colleagues, her daughter I think she was 14 at the time. And she just started, an athlete in high school, but she started to get incredibly fatigued and she started to get depressed. And they live in North Dakota. She was an indoor lifeguard. And she just got to the point where she told her mom one day, she's like, Mom, I feel like I'm not going to live. It was just deep, deep body pain, fatigue. And her mom was a nurse, and her mom's a holistic nurse. And she went and consulted so many different people. And it wasn't until she talked to one of her colleagues that her colleague was like, measure her vitamin D level. And her vitamin D level was 8.
Wow.
8. So she put her on vitamin D right away. And within just a couple weeks, started to feel normal again. And I can't tell you how many times I have talked to people personally or heard stories. They email me or whatever, and they say, my vitamin D level was so low. As soon as I started taking it, my energy started getting better. My low back pain went away. Those are some of the things that people will notice if they do have symptoms.
It makes me think about 2 years ago when I had the Vitamin D Council on here, and I was interviewing the director, and I asked her, how'd you get interested in vitamin D? And she said, I was a very sick kid. I went to a bunch of doctors, and I went to a holistic doctor who tested my vitamin D level and diagnosed me with deficient levels, which led to lupus. So again, these little small things can turn into something very big. And as I mentioned, different weather is occurring this year throughout, the country. People are coming out of winter with extremely low levels, like you mentioned, the friend in North Dakota. But why is this happening, Jen? What can we do to help people kind of get around that situation?
So this is the time of year when the risk of vitamin D deficiency is greatest because we are just coming out of winter. A lot of people haven't even had UVB to expose their skin to, or they've been staying inside, or they've had clothes covering them up. And so I guarantee if they're not taking a supplement, they're deficient. And let me just say one thing, and this is a really important message. Vitamin D and correcting vitamin D deficiency is probably the single safest, easiest, most inexpensive and effective ways to improve your health. And I'm talking all spans of health. I'm talking prenatal, I'm talking infertility and conception. There are so many different things that vitamin D is needed for during pregnancy, especially. Pregnancy is probably the most important time to make sure that you're getting enough vitamin D, because you need that vitamin D for the priming of the immune system. You're priming your baby's immune system for their entire life during that first 1,000 days. And so ensuring that you're getting enough vitamin D can decrease the risk of so many different things, not just preterm birth, preeclampsia, gestational diabetes during pregnancy, but also autoimmune diseases in the baby, asthma, type 1 diabetes, cancer later in life. There's so many different things that vitamin D deficiency increases the risk for. Making sure that your vitamin D level is in that 40 to 60 range. And this is another reason so many people are deficient, because there is these guidelines that have been created by the Institute of Medicine back in 2011. They based their guidelines only on bone health, when we know that vitamin D is really absolutely necessary for so much more. Almost every single cell in our body has the ability to take vitamin D, D3 or 25-OHD into the cell and convert it directly within the cell for its use. And it's going to affect the DNA. It's going to affect how it communicates with the other cells around it, and especially our immune cells. So this is way beyond bone metabolism, right? Way beyond what we need vitamin D for, regulating our calcium levels. And so the IOM suggests or says, we only need 600 IU a day, which is about 10 times below what we really need. We really need closer to 5,000 IU a day. And again, it's a wide range of variability. So in our study, wife that reached out to me and she said, I only need 2,000 IU a day to keep my vitamin D level between 40 and 60. But my husband, who had type 2 diabetes, needs 10,000 IU a day to keep his levels in that same range. And so just saying, okay, all you need is 600 IU a day, and, just thinking, oh, I'm taking my multivitamin, it's got vitamin D in it, I'm fine. No, it's way too low.
It's not a one size fits all. And I know that you had shared that story with me, and the husband had bigger body mass as well. So, as you're trying to get the tissue to be able to absorb those things, and you have more visceral fat that you're kind of battling with, it can kind of make it so you have to have more, as Jen has shared with us. Now, I know that you were referencing the D Action Project, and that is something that I know you're so prideful of at Grassroots Health. If you don't know your numbers, how do you just assume, well, I'm just going to take the 5,000 somebody told me to take, but I don't know, maybe I'll only take it once a week. That's not the way to go either, right? You want to be consistent.
Yeah, you got to really make it a daily habit. Getting your daily vitamin D is the best way to get it, because vitamin D3 itself, and I know we didn't really talk about this much, but just a real quick review. So you make vitamin D3 in your skin upon UVB exposure from sun. That's the molecule that your skin makes. That's usually what we eat in some animal products, dairy products. It's that vitamin D3. It is really hard to get enough vitamin D from diet alone.
Yeah.
You have to, we talked about that, that you can get it from whale blubber or eating a lot of fatty fish, but most of us don't.
I don't even know where you would get whale blubber at this point in the game. You know what I mean?
Right. And so that vitamin D3 that we take in, or that we make, our body, mostly our livers, but the D3 does go into the cells, right? But mostly our livers convert it to 25-hydroxyvitamin D or 25-OHD. And that's the vitamin D that you're measuring in your blood. That's the vitamin D, the form that is directly related to the status, right? So that tells you what your vitamin D status is. It has the longest half-life in your blood, meaning it's in your blood a lot longer than the other forms of vitamin D. And then we call what the body then converts 25-OHD into 125D. 125D is often termed the active or the hormonal form of vitamin D. And that's the form that our kidneys make in response to calcium levels in the blood. And that's the form that our every single cell in our body can convert and actually is used to help regulate our DNA. And so, oh goodness, how did I get on that conversation?
I like it. Keep it going. I mean, the listeners are like, tell me more.
I forget why I started down that road, but
hey, we went down that rabbit hole with you and we are happy. Let me just tell you that was a lot of great information. And I think people can accept the information hearing it in that way. And I'm glad that you mentioned that. And again, I know we're going to talk when we come back from the break about why testing is important, ways people can test at home safely with a very great lab, Omega Quant, who we have shared on this show over a decade with Bill Harris running the charge there. But over the break, how can people take a free vitamin D quiz?
Oh, well, they can go to CheckYourD.org, and there's a quiz on that website. And it's a great way to educate yourself on the different risk factors that affect vitamin D levels. And as you're answering the questions, the quiz will also tell you what your risk of having low vitamin D levels are. So below that 40 nanograms per milliliter. And there are a few, and it's a very short quiz, the required questions at the beginning. Just a few of those questions. And then it's followed by a list of different health conditions and medications that also affect vitamin D levels. So if you're going through and you're checking off, a few of those, then that means that you are either at higher risk of being low on vitamin D, or you need vitamin D more than other people because of those diseases or conditions.
And I love that you mentioned the medication angle. Sometimes people have to go on a pharmaceutical temporarily, or some are on long term. And again, being mindful of some of the robbers that could be happening when you're taking a medication. They can rob nutrients. They can rob certain levels of things that we need imperatively in our body. So again, feel free to go take that free quiz. Again, this is an educational program letting you know how to CheckYourD.org. You can go to that website, CheckYourD.org. Learn a little bit more. If you're working out or driving right now, know that I've housed this wonderful link and information about Grassroots Health and information about Jen. If you're local to the San Diego community, feel free to go and check the weekly highlight page at foreveryoungradio.com. We'll be right back with one more great segment.
Did you know almost 90% of adults and children in the U.S. are below the optimal vitamin D level of 40 to 60 nanograms per milliliter? Every tissue in our bodies needs vitamin D and may be impaired if we do not get enough. In its most extreme forms, vitamin D deficiency may result in rickets in children and bone softening in adults. Milder degrees of deficiency are being studied as risk factors of a vast array of chronic diseases such as heart disease, cancer, and autoimmune diseases. Knowing your vitamin D level is essential to determining if you are getting enough vitamin D. Everyone responds differently to vitamin D intake, meaning the same dose does not work the same for everyone. That's why it's imperative to test and not guess when it comes to your vitamin D status, as it's important for all stages of health. Learn more at CheckYourD.org. There, you can take a free vitamin D health quiz or purchase an at-home vitamin D test where the results are sent directly to your email. That's CheckYourD.org.
Emerald Labs, the additive-free company, proudly celebrates 25 years of wellness and a lifetime of gratitude. Emerald Labs has been family-owned and operated since our beginnings in 2001. We've been committed to providing your family with formulas using supportive nutrient forms manufactured at our facility without the use of additives. The Emerald Labs line of products is doctor-formulated and focused on science-backed ingredients, delivering additive-free products from our family to yours. Join us in celebrating our 25th anniversary. Learn more about our award-winning multivitamins, condition-specific formulas, and cutting-edge anti-aging products by visiting us at emeraldlabs.com. As we approach the next 25 years, we thank you, the consumer, for the support you've given us for the past quarter century. You can also find our products at Sprouts, Natural Grocers, Fresh Time, and other natural product health retailers nationwide. Learn more at emeraldlabs.com.
Have you ever heard someone say that probiotics didn't work for them? Since all probiotics are not the same, the probiotic you choose can make the difference between superior results and no results. Look for an enriched formula containing these 3 key components for best results: probiotics, prebiotics, and postbiotics. A worldwide leader in microbiome health for over 40 years, Dr. Ohhira's Probiotics is an enriched full-spectrum probiotic system fermenting multiple strains of probiotic bacteria and nourishing prebiotics. The result? Transformative postbiotic metabolites that maintain and support the biodiversity of flora in your gut for optimal digestion, gut-brain, and immune health. Dr. Ohhira's, certified vegetarian, free of gluten, allergens, dairy, and GMOs. For a superior probiotic formula, get Dr. Ohhira's probiotics today at Sprouts, Natural Grocers, and other natural health retailers nationwide.
Every tissue in our bodies needs vitamin D and may be impaired if we do not get enough. That's why it's imperative to test and not guess when it comes to your vitamin D status, as it's important for all stages of health. Learn more at CheckYourD.org.
So grateful that you joined us today. You picked up this episode talking about vitamin D. What are some of the risks of not having proper levels, how to achieve proper levels, but more importantly, knowing your levels. And we're being joined by Jen Aliano, again, of GrassrootsHealth, and encouraging us to know our numbers. Now, Jen, why is CheckYourD.org different? And how are the tests that are being sent to consumers for purchase different than what they're seeing on social media and things like that?
And there's so many of them out there now.
Yeah.
And there are different types of tests. So back to the doctors, right? Doctors don't really know much about nutrition, and they don't get a lot of schooling currently in nutrition. And to some of them, it's almost like vitamin D, you only need this much, right? They're following the IOM guidelines, or it's too simple of something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they just don't put faith in it, and they don't think that measuring it is really of value when really it is.
Right.
And so some of the tests that are often ordered through a doctor's office are done through, the blood draw and the immunoassay type of testing is not as accurate. And there's actually different things like biotin. If you're taking biotin in like a hair nail supplement, it's going to interfere with the vitamin D result from the immunoassay testing. So we use mass spec, and our lab has done many, many comparisons between what they offer through a dried blood spot test compared to the serum testing. And they have done, several different comparisons to find that the results come out the same. And so what we offer is that home blood spot test where you use a lancet and you prick your finger, and then you drop some blood on a piece of filter paper. You let it dry, and then you mail it into the lab, and then the lab will email you your results. It's that easy.
Wow.
So, and I know, there are other brand new tests that are coming out on the market, and some of them don't even give you a number. They just tell you if you're high or low, and they just haven't been validated.
Right.
Our testing has been validated over decades.
Listeners, I'll be ordering the test today at CheckYourD.org. I'll be reporting back in 3 months, tell you my initial numbers that I got. So again, when we ask you to do something or encourage you to do something on this program, we do it as well. That's one of the cool things about the show. But Jen, after I get my initial results that are emailed to me, what do I do then? What are the steps that I would take to try to get on the other side of maybe having more optimal vitamin D?
The first step you want to do is you want to take your current vitamin D level, and you want to understand what your target is, right? So I generally suggest aiming for 50 nanograms per milliliter for the general population, for the, just the normal individual who is in generally good health, right? Because that's right in the middle of the 40 to 60 range. There are reasons that somebody might want to aim for higher. There are studies showing that up to 80 might be beneficial for further reduction in cancer risk. Autoimmune diseases. You can actually, and this is a totally different subject, but there are protocols that use what are called therapeutic doses of vitamin D to get the vitamin D level up even over 100. I don't recommend doing that without the guidance of a knowledgeable healthcare practitioner, but there are a lot of success stories out there from people who have been able to control their autoimmune diseases, for example, with high doses of vitamin D, along with other nutrients that are really important, along with some other lifestyle changes. But again, that's not really the focus of this conversation, and that needs to be done with a healthcare practitioner, because you can take too much vitamin D. It's really difficult to take too much. It's really difficult to get toxic, but that's another reason to measure your level, right? So most people are deficient, though. So when you get your result back, you go to our website. You can either go to grassrootshealth.net or back to CheckYourD.org, and we'll have a link back to our calculator on the website. And you plug in your current level, you plug in your target level along with your weight. And we also have an age-based calculator, so whichever one you go to. And the calculator will suggest both a maintenance dose, which is your daily dose of vitamin D, and it will also suggest a loading dose. And that loading dose is really for individuals whose levels right now are very low. And you take that loading dose, it's very safe to take that loading dose for several days in a row and then go down to your maintenance dose. And so you want to continue on that dose until you retest. Okay. So unless you're doing a loading dose, you might want to retest sooner. But in general, we recommend retesting around 3 to 6 months after implementing that new dose. So make sure that what you're taking is working properly for you. You want to be in your target range. If you are not there yet, you just use the calculator again. It will give you a little bit higher dose. You get back on that, and you take it for 3 to 6 months and then retest until you're at your target range. And another misconception, and I've heard this so many times, it's interesting. I hear stories from people. Yeah, my doctor told me I was deficient, so I started taking vitamin D, and then my level was fine, so I didn't need it anymore. No, that's not how it works. You need to continue taking your vitamin D every day in order to maintain that level. So once you reach your target level, the dose of vitamin D that got you there is the dose you want to stay on. And then you want to measure maybe once or twice a year. And the best times to measure are after winter, so you can see what your low is, and then after summer, so you can see what your high is, right? Because during the summer, you're getting the most sun, and that does contribute to your vitamin D levels.
That's a really good recommendation. And again, it gets people involved in managing and helping to take care of their own health. If you have these numbers, you know exactly the direction you need to go based on research where they want those numbers, that window of 40 to 60. But understanding how your body's converting it, how it's accepting it, is just a wonderful thing. And again, you can go learn more about this test and the free health quiz at checkyourd.org. We've put these links on the weekly highlight page. Now, Jen, I think about your young son, 11 on the vitamin D level. I think about a lot of other people that we've heard about or maybe had some stumbling through the pregnancy process. I heard you mention 1,000 days. What's the importance of vitamin D before conception and beyond when we're talking about pregnancy?
Oh, goodness. So pregnancy is a very unique time where vitamin D is concerned, because normally the body has a very tight regulation on its conversion of the 25-OHD into the active hormonal 125D, right? Because it's strictly to monitor calcium levels. But during pregnancy, that changes. And vitamin D conversion revs up so much that by the end of her first trimester, a pregnant woman, her 125 levels could be, if a non-pregnant individual had those 125 levels, it could be toxic and potentially fatal to them. Wow. So vitamin D, there's something during pregnancy that is really needing more vitamin D. One more fun fact is that when you're looking at African tribes and you're looking at their vitamin D levels and they're only getting vitamin D from the sun, pregnant women compared to any other segment of the population, their vitamin D levels naturally increase during pregnancy. So they have the highest levels of vitamin D.
Wow.
And not only does making sure that you have at least 40 nanograms per milliliter prior to pregnancy, it improves your chances of conception. It decreases the risk of preeclampsia to almost nothing. That's what initial studies are showing. Decreases the risk of asthma and so many other things. And again, you know, you're growing a baby inside you, and those first 1,000 days, you're setting the stage for their immune health for the rest of their life. And vitamin D is essential to proper immune function.
I mean, I just met you yesterday for the first time. I'm like, you coming on the show this week? You know, we moved some things around, and it's so important because it's a perfect time for people coming out of winter to actually really care and then carry that on throughout their life. If you're a family of 5 and you wanted to take these tests, can you do this if you have a kid who's 14 years old? Is that okay? Or does somebody have to be 18 and over to be able to test those levels?
Oh, no, definitely test your kids. You know, teenagers are, God, I've got more stories I can share, but teenagers are so deficient, right? Especially, you know, as you're growing, you need more vitamin D. And our teens these days, their mental health is struggling, and vitamin D can make such a big difference.
CheckYourD.org, and you can learn more about the test and get some really good education on vitamin D. And feel free to take that free vitamin D quiz while you're there to kind of set you up and have an understanding of how the process is going to work, things that you didn't even correlate that could go and pair with a vitamin D deficiency. Getting that education is important. Jen, wonderful guest today. I hope I get to talk to you again in a couple months when I share my results from taking my test at CheckYourD.org. But again, thank you for all you do for the community and being such an advocate for other people's health.
Well, thank you for having me on and for helping to spread this important information.
Hope you have a happy and healthy week, and we'll catch you next time right here on Forever Young.